Hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here. So 24.6, a couple days ago as I recording this video, has come out, been announced, and immediately came out to Hearthstone, and that has led to a whole bunch of announcements. There's a new class being added to Hearthstone, some mercenary stuff, battleground stuff, and a lot of stuff I'm not going to be talking about right now because I'm just going to be talking about the arena stuff. Before I do, I just want to mention, because many of you have noticed I have not been uploading much. Couple people have asked, like, am I okay? I am okay. If anything, better than normal. However, if you came into my Twitch streams, I mean, there I made it no secret that I just was not a fan of the previous meta, which is no longer a thing. The short explanation being that, you know, the mix of just like really bad cards combined with some of the really new, just absurdly strong cards just made a lot of the games really unsatisfying to me. And I really didn't want to voice too much of my displeasure through YouTube because I didn't feel like it would be particularly productive or constructive. And I did suspect this meta change was coming, so I kind of decided I was going to wait for it. So as a result, I was kind of doing a lot of things like traveling around, touching grass, we'll just put it that way. Far more than normal. So anyway, let's just get into the patch notes here that impact Arena. So there is the big Arena update section is that all current Arena runs will end and Hallow's End will come to Arena. They really like to do this, ending the runs with no warning so people can't get the free tickets, I guess. But they are bringing back dual class. This was kind of what we had expected, but we had not expected that they were also going to do a new rotation, which does largely fix the problems I had identified in the previous meta. They did create a lot of new problems, but we'll get into that. But the sets for this rotation are all sets from Classic through League of Explorers. That's it. No core set, no modern cards, but with one catch, as they say, Demon Hunter is in the game, but for some reason Demon Hunter doesn't get any of their class cards, I guess because all the Demon Hunter class cards are modern, right? And they're saying that this is going to last until December 6th, and just the actual sets that these are, that is Basic, Classic, Curse of Naxxramas, Goblins vs. Gnomes, Blackrock Mountain, the Grand Tournament, and League of Explorers. I think we've had most of these sets in rather recent memory, but Curse of Naxxramas, I think specifically, has not been in Arena for years. So, you know, things like Haunted Creeper, some of these cards are, if you've just been playing the last year or two, you might have just never seen them before in Arena. And as we tend to do, let's look at Matt London's Twitter thread where he did a whole bunch about a lot of these announcements, but his main note here is that Dual Class Arena is returning, and this time it's retro. It's all of the old cards. So dust off those Chillwind Yetis. But now there's one problem with that, is that you can't actually draft Chillwind Yeti right now, but we'll get into that. But first of all, I just want to talk about a few nuances of this thing. As they said, this is all of the old cards, but there's a couple things to note here. First of all, for any card that has been updated balance-wise, you get the new version, not the old version. So for example, you know, Warhorse Trainer is still the current version, which I mean is way better than everything else you can actually draft now, because most of these cards aren't that good. And you know, you can do Warhorse Trainer with Muster for Battle, for example, by the way. So they're, you know, Paladin has some pretty crazy things. And just like, you know, another example like Azure Drake, like, you know, this card was a 4/4 back then. It is still a 4/5 like it is in the modern game. So, you know, a card like this is very, very strong, stronger than it ever would have been back in the day. However, generally speaking, you know, we are playing with a lot of these old cards, and all these old cards are not very strong compared to the things we have been used to playing with in recent memory. So the meta does still definitely serve as quite a bit of a throwback. The second note I wanted to make about this is that, as a general note, the number of cards that are actually in the game is much, much smaller than it normally is. You can see here the total number of current Arena cards on the website is 764. This even includes some of the Demon Hunter cards that aren't actually in the game, but there's only like 10 of these. But typically this number is over 1,000, I believe. I think it's usually like 300 higher than this. So already it's about 30% smaller of a card pool than normal. The reason for that just being is that, you know, if you look back at the sets in the game, Basic and Classic, that's probably about the same as Core, I don't exactly remember, but Naxxramas, this is only an adventure. Blackrock Mountain, this is only an adventure. League of Explorers is also only an adventure. Very small number of cards there. There are only 2 actual full sets in addition to Basic and Classic in the game, so that's why there are just simply less cards than normal right now. Which essentially means, you know, there's going to be less variety. Some of the people are already starting to complain about there just not being much variety, losing to the same cards like North Sea Kraken, for example. Where's our guy North Sea Kraken? There he is right here. You're going to see a lot of these ending a lot of games. But there is one more reason for that beyond even, I mentioned it's 30% smaller than normal, but actually it's not 30% smaller. Right now it's close to 50% smaller. And the reason for that is, as I've noted on my Twitter here, and I kind of alluded to earlier, you can't actually draft Chillwind Yeti, and there are actually close to 200 other cards you cannot actually draft right now. From what I can tell, it's basically everything that was in the basic set, and also I believe any card that was added to Legacy later on as well. So this includes like Chillwind Yeti, Boulder Fist Ogre. Actually, we'll go through like the list really quickly. I'm not going to talk about all these individually, but there are just a whole bunch of new cards that are just not draftable that are supposed to be. And we'll just talk about a few of these on the list, but like Chillwind Yeti, as we were talking about earlier, Frostless Warlord, Boulder Fist Ogre, and then a lot of these class cards as well that are pretty iconic. We would have expected to be seeing Swipe Back, for example. You would expect to see like Kill Command, Animal Companion, Frostbolt, Fireball, Polymorph, Flame Strike, Water Elemental. They're just like a lot of these cards. Consecration, Blessing Kings, True Silver, very typical cards you would think about in these classes that are just not available right now. It means there's no mind control as well, I'll just scroll through all of these really quickly, but yeah, they're just, so it's very interesting in the sense that there's just not a lot of what you would expect a lot of these classes to actually have right now. So that does mean that at least, for the time being, there are certain things that you would expect to have to play around, like Dread Infernal, Flame Strike, X, Fire Elemental, Consecration, Mind Control, Holy Nova, Showered Pain and Death. Things that you would expect to have to play around that at least currently you cannot. Now, of course, they're probably going to hotfix this, I would guess, any day now if they haven't already done it by the time I actually post this video. So definitely be careful and just keep in mind that if you at any point you might just start to see these cards and then, you'll have to start playing around them again. But for the time being, you can get a bit of an advantage over people potentially by just knowing that you just don't have to worry about Flame Strike and a lot of these other cards. But with that, that's just something you definitely want to be aware of and to keep in mind for the future. And the other thing I just want to close out with this video is just to talk a little bit about, dual class, how to play it. I might do a more thorough guide of dual class, maybe a little bit, maybe do a kind of balanced tier list. I don't know how I'll actually do that with the classes, but for now, let's just look at HS Replay really quickly, because you will see if you go to the arena section, all of the classes here 1 through 10. Now, what's important to note here is that you're only seeing the first class selection here. Obviously in dual class, you get the portrait class, which determines what cards you are able to discover, even though there's very little discover now because the cards are so old. And then there is the second class, which determines your hero power, and you get class cards in the draft available from both classes. And as I had mentioned, you don't actually get class cards in Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter by far being, actually not by too far being the worst class here. Mage actually, interestingly, being the second worst class. Probably because a lot of their cards like Fireball, Polymorph, Flame Strike are not actually draftable at the moment. I'd expect them to go a little bit higher once that is fixed. And so some of this will change, but as you can see right now, it's actually kind of surprising to me, and it might again have something to do with that bug in the game not being able to get the basic cards, but Warrior actually being the clear number 1 right now. Warrior is always a good pick in dual class because, they're balanced around not having a hero power basically, but, dual class solves the problem. So one of the best combinations, would be like Warrior Demon Hunter, for example. But in general, you just want to get the class with the best cards you can first, and right now that's Warrior, Paladin, and Shaman, closely followed a bit by Priest. And then as a second pick, you can also try to prioritize some of these same classes for card value at the cost of a hero power, but oftentimes you're actually going to prefer to get, a class with a better hero power, like Warlock, Druid, Rogue, or possibly Mage as well. But maybe Mage would be a bit lower right now because of the card problem. But that is pretty much how you want to be choosing your classes, assuming you want to actually win. Because the card quality is so low, there isn't really that much to think about as far as like combos. You kind of just want to, you know, get the best cards you can and get a good hero power and just kind of go with that. The one thing I'll add is just a note on the meta itself. What's happening right now, and I think part of this is because of the basic card bug, is that there are just an absurdly low number of swings right now. Because for example, you know, you expect there should be like mage being able to cast, you know, flame strike and things like that, and I think that's why, because of that basic card bug, there just isn't a lot of that. So really, once someone gets ahead, they just win. So games are very fast right now, and so games have been very, very scrappy. I've found it very difficult to even carry like even a few 8 or 9 mana cards, because the games just end too fast. Like by turn 5, usually one person has an advantage, they're not going to give up. So most games are ending with someone having a decisive advantage rather early on, and I think because of that, you know, that's going to make it even more important than normal to get a good hero power like Demon Hunter or Rogue that can actually help you. And even though Warlock you would imagine would be very good in a meta like this, I think there's just not really a lot of time to life tap right now, because the games do just end so fast. So I think Warlock is still probably a good second pick, but not as good as a lot of the other options right now. But of course, again, that might change as some of the basic cards get added back into the game, and then maybe there's more control mages and there could be a bit more of a control-y meta, but right now it is a really, really scrappy tempo meta. But with that, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about dual class. Again, I'll probably put some more content about this out at some point. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, and as well, I'm going to be, fortunately, because of the runs actually being very short, hopefully I'll be able to actually put out more videos than definitely more than the last month where I wasn't really uploading, but possibly even more than usual, because I have a 12-win run which will be uploading probably the next day or two definitely. Playtime on that run was just over an hour. It was not a particularly aggressive deck either, so yeah, hopefully we'll be able to put out more content than usual. So hope you guys will be looking forward to that. Of course, I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys in Twitch if you want to come by, twitch.tv/kolst as always. Thanks all for hanging out in this video as well. Hope you guys have fun in this dual class arena meta with very, very old cards. But yeah, thanks again. We'll see you guys in the next one.